I am Joe Romeo, President of the Board. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Evanston. Whether this is your spiritual home or you are newly discovering this community, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community seeking truth and love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. We come together to remember our kinship with one another and to hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the description below the YouTube live stream, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and to be added to our email newsletter list. A few announcements. After our worship, we will have a 20-minute kinship time with hot beverages and treats from 11:15 to 11:35. During that time, please try to greet someone you haven't met before. After kinship, at 11:35, our all-ages faith formation hour begins, which includes no chair yoga this morning, prayer for UUs led by Reverend Eileen in room 6 and on Zoom, nursery care for ages 0 to 3 in room 11, and from 1 to 4 p.m. today, you can join the Harms Woods outing. Please check the newsletter for more details. This Thursday, May 26th, we will have a kitchen training from 6:15 to 6:45. If you are interested in sharing your love of food or coffee with the congregation, please come to the training and join our kitchen hospitality team. Next Sunday, May 29th, our Faith Formation Hour is hosted by the Real Team, and we will be having an ice cream social on our south lawn with Second Baptist Church, featuring Yo Fresh and the Balloon Maker. Clear your schedule to stay for an hour after the service next Sunday. And on Sunday, June 5th, we will have our Flower Communion service and annual church picnic. Please plan to bring a salad, side, or dessert to share. If you or someone are someone who likes to grill, please let Reverend Eileen know.
I have one additional exciting announcement before moving into our worship. This year, we recreated Uce Rummage Sale, and everybody was invited to share in the work. It was a much more streamlined and less, I think, volunteer taxing event. But more wonderfully than that, it was a success in that it made $22,000 even after expenses, and we still have additional things that we're selling online, so that might go up. Just to give you some context, that's about $4,000 more than we were making before the pandemic, and twice as much as we had expected we might make this year. So I'm so overjoyed and so grateful for the team that not only ran just such an efficient and well-organized sale, but they Lynn Kendall and Margaret Schatz stepped in to help co-chair. Thank you. Sandra Robinson was an incredible staff lead. She just put in so much time and effort and love. And there's too many to name, but thanks to all of those who were department leads, those who worked on publicity, who helped organize the documents and the planning so that we can carry this forward into the future, this more efficient and successful way of doing things. And those that worked at the cafe, we had a wonderful cafe in the parking lot, all who brought items for the cafe, and everybody who brought something to donate. Thank you, everyone. This was truly a labor of love and fundraising and community building. So let's learn from this experience of sharing the work and do that in the future. So thank you again, everyone. Our opening reading is Surrender to This Life by Reverend Gretchen Haley of Foothills Unitarian Church. Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now. Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other ages, other countries, other stakes. Purge the past, forgive the future, for each come too soon. Surrender only to this life, this day, this hour, not because it does not constantly break your heart, but because it also beckons with beauty, startles with delight, if only we keep waking up. This is the gift we have been given, these body clothes, this heartbreak, this pulse, this breath, this light, these friends, this hope. Here we remember ourselves, all a part of it all, still growing together. Welcome to worship.
I'm just gonna breathe. Till there's nothing in this life I change. I'm just gonna breathe. Till I touch the sorrow neath the rage. I'm just gonna breathe. Till there's nothing lurking round my smile. Well, I'm just gonna breathe. Until I'm glad to breathe just for a while. We'll give up the thought for some other love. There's hope in the way that you are living. We'll give up the thought for some other love. There's changing no longer resistant. I'm just gonna breathe. Till there's nothing I'd change in this life. I'm just gonna breathe. Until I touch the love beneath the strife. I'm just gonna breathe. Till it feels so natural just to smile. I'm just gonna breathe. Until I'm glad to breathe here for a while. We'll give up the thought for some other love. There's hope in the way give up the fight for some other life. It's changing, no longer resisting. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. It's gonna breathe, breathe, breathe. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. Give up the fight, breathe, breathe. For some other life, breathe, breathe. Give up the fight, breathe, breathe. For some other life, breathe, breathe. I'm just gonna breathe.
This is our land acknowledgement. The Unitarian Church of Evanston resides on the traditional homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. This land was recorded as being transferred from the local Potawatomi community to the U.S. government in 1829 and then was sold to white settlers. After decades of violent encroachment by the French, British, and then U.S. American settlers, the Potawatomi community had no choice but to sell before they were forcefully removed west of the Mississippi River. The Chicagoland area is now home to one of the largest and most diverse urban Native communities in the U.S. Our faith calls us to name these realities with honor and respect as one small effort toward finding greater accountability, deeper relationship, and mutuality with contemporary indigenous communities, for the land which we use as sacred space, for the animals and plants that have been sustained by this land, and for our ancestors and descendants who are and will become part of the earth. Chalice lighting now. Sandra and Margaret will be lighting. Lynn. Sorry. Never want to forget Lynn. Yes. As Sandra Lynn and Margaret light our chalice, symbol of our living tradition in celebration of our successful rummage sale, please join in saying these words. We light this chalice to honor the ancestors who have forged a way for us to travel. We light this chalice to embolden us as we strive to co-create a brighter future. We light this chalice with the hope that we may be made wise by what has come before, and that the past may inform, but not limit, what we imagine and bring into being. Please rise in body and or spirit and join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Before our hymn, please turn to one another, someone sitting near you, and perhaps someone you don't know well, and offer a greeting and welcome. If you are participating from home, please offer your greetings in the chat if you haven't already. please remain uplifted as we sing hymn number 1000, Morning Has Come, verses 1 and 2.
There once was a bur oak which lived on a prairie. The tree didn't remember the day the family rolled over the prairie and stopped at the bottom of the gentle hills. It didn't watch as they built their home out of sod and bits of lumber. The tree couldn't have recalled how the family rode out to the stand of bur oaks to collect the furry acorns. It wasn't alive yet. It didn't watch them plant the acorns or see them celebrating when one green shoot rose up to become itself. But the tree did remember the family carrying water all the way from the river to pour on its sapling self when the sun of the prairie beat down. It recalled how the children would lie under its shade and giggle and chatter. The tree would chatter back in its own whispering way. Then one day, the tree saw the family pack up all they owned. It felt the arms of the children circle its slender trunk and watched as they rolled over the hills and out of sight. After that, no one brought the little tree water when the prairie sun beat down. Some years were so dry the tree didn't grow taller at all, just twistier and more gnarled the way bur oaks do. Maybe it was the dryness, or maybe it was the ground squirrels and mice that were hungry for its acorns, but no other trees sprouted there. The little bur oak stood alone at the bottom of the gentle hills. It watched the big prairie sky and listened to the chatter of the birds and creatures that came and went. It knew no other family. Then one day, 2 crows came to rest on its branches. They cawed and squawked about their siblings and cousins the way crows do. Family, the tree whispered aloud. I once had a family. Family, said the crows. Everybody's got family. No, said the tree. They rolled away. Rolled away, squawked the crows. Your family is just over that hill. My family, asked the tree. The children? Children, squawked the crows even harder. Your family of trees is just over the hill. Can't you see them? The tree stretched up as far upward as its twisty branches would allow, but it could not see the hills around it. No, said the tree, I cannot. What a shame, said the crows, looking the tree up and down. You're about as tall as a bur oak can get in these parts. What a shame, said the crows, and they flew away. Once again, the tree stood alone at the bottom of the gentle hills. A family of trees, it thought, a family of trees. It tried again to stretch as high as its twisty branches would allow, but it was no use. It still could not see above the hills around it. I must see them, thought the little tree. I must. The little oak dug its taproot deeper into the soil. Do you know what a taproot is? It's the thick central root that goes down deep into earth to pull up water and nutrients. It reached down and down through all the layers of soil and earth through the many years of history found beneath it until it felt just a little moisture. It pulled the moisture up through its roots, up into its trunk, and all the way to its branches. It spread its leaves wide to catch the prairie sun. Then it stretched and reached and reached and stretched. It felt as if it was higher in the prairie sky than it had ever been before. Still, it could not see the hills around it. The tree drooped over right where it stood. And then, just barely, it heard a whisper. The tree stilled its own branches to listen. There it was, the whisper of a tree, of many trees. The little bur oak sent its root down a little bit deeper, even farther down into the history of the earth, beneath the surface. It spread its leaves a little bit wider, and it reached up just a little bit higher, until just over the hill, it could see the twisty, gnarled tops of bur oak trees swaying under the big prairie sky. And on days when the wind was just right, it could hear those bur oaks whispering away. And on days when the wind was just right, the now not so little bur oak could whisper right back and chatter away to its family of trees. We all need to dig down deep sometimes to gather the resources we need to stretch beyond our current perspective, to grow beyond our current reach.
Please join in our hymn response, 1058, Be Ours of Religion. Each Sunday, we hold space for the joys and sorrows of those gathered here, honoring the struggles and the triumphs, the brokenness and the wholeness that is woven into the human experience. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like spoken aloud, you can enter it into the book found at the back. You can enter it into our Google form found on our website, or you can send me an email, preferably before 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Or you can enter it into the chat on the YouTube live stream if you're joining us virtually. We have many joys and sorrows to share today. First, I want to welcome Aya Haj Khalef, who's here today with her son, Taim. Did I say that right, Taim? Yeah. She's part of the Syrian refugee family that UC helped when they came to the U.S. in 2016. Since that time, her aunt and her family also have arrived in Skokie, and today she wanted me to share this message with all of you. I want to thank all the people of UCE who have helped my aunt, Gufran, and her 3 children when they arrived from the refugee camp and moved to Skokie in August of 2021. You have helped her with clothing, mitten tree donations, emotional support, rides to the doctor's office, and most important, paying the rent. This has helped them adjust to life in the U.S. They are all learning English, and the kids are enjoying school, so thank you so very, very much. We're so pleased to have you join us, and I understand that you brought us a gift for our kinship time, some baklava, so if that's not a reason to stick around, please enjoy saying hello to Aya at the back of the sanctuary after the service. Grateful that you're here. From Kathy Diamant, a special thank you to Gretchen Brewster for her serendipity auction donation of sponsoring the recent square dancing night at UCE. It was a good time for all. It was so much fun to be together and for UCE members to learn square dancing together. From Joe Romeo, I'm extremely proud of the upstairs Romeos, he writes. My daughter-in-law Emily has accepted a position as professor of history at Northern Michigan University, where she will be their specialist in early American women's studies. She will be afforded the respect and independence which a tenure-track position with strong union protection provides. My nearly 9-year-old granddaughter Nick and almost 12-year-old grandson Joey have joined my son Tony in offering their encouragement and support for her in this phase of her pursuit of a meaningful career. It will be a difficult problem for them to embrace as they consider Tony's career teaching in CPS, our connection to this neighborhood and its school, and Emily's opportunity, and most importantly, family cohesiveness. From Jonna Van Dyke, during the thick of things on the sale on Friday morning, she came down with shingles at the worst possible time. Will, Sandra, and others rallied and got us through it with flying colors. Congratulations to all on the sale, she writes. From Ellie Fedderson, after attending the funeral mass of Dan Maloney yesterday, I am grieving for myself along with my friend, his wife, Barbara Soroselli, who is also a pastoral care associate at our neighbor church of St. Nick's down the street. Dan died tragically on March 10th, 2022 at the age of 86, the victim of a house fire in his Brummel Street home, where he lived for 35 years. He was a kind, gentle soul, a fighter for social justice in many arenas near and far, most recently here in Evanston, and in his youth as a priest in South America. And he always seemed to beat us at contract rummy. I have another sorrow that was shared with me by a text. Dr. Rosemary Radford Ruther, this is from Barbara Mesley. Dr. Rosemary Radford Ruther died yesterday at age 86. Dr. Ruther was a force for good in feminist theology and taught at Garrett Seminary. Ann Sullivan shared this sorrow that her brother John Sullivan died on Thursday. He was 70 and had been in hospice for over 6 months. Suzanne Peterson and family share the sad news about Suzanne's mother, Rosalind Peterson, who passed away unexpectedly in her sleep the weekend of May 7th and 8th. Rosalind was 82 and will be remembered fondly by her friends and family, including grandchildren Ellie, Maddie, and Jake Finkel. And they brought these lovely flowers from her service from yesterday. Thank you for being here. And Roy Carlson is in hospice care at Illinois Masonic Hospital. 1 week after moving to Covenant Home, he fell and hit his head, causing serious brain injury. He is well cared for and surrounded by his nephews Ed and Ron's wife Terry. I pray for his peaceful passing. This sacred space for our tender offerings is part of the practice of beloved community. Together we expand our celebrations and we lessen the burden of our grief. And so I invite you now, if you have a joy or a sorrow on your heart that you didn't want to speak out loud, but you would still like to be recognized, please come forward now and light a candle. Please join me in the spirit of prayer meditation. Spirit of life and source of love, we call on you for courage to do what must be done, to hold all that there is to hold, and to continue in the struggle to create more justice and beauty and peace in the world. Help us to turn again and again toward one another and to the forces for good and truth that remain all around us, even as we may feel the onslaught of hatred and lies and abusive power that thwart our efforts. Guide us to the places where joy still lives, poking up from the dry ground, showing us the ways that we can contribute our resources to nourish life, draw upon renewal, and spread our reach toward connection. Heal our hearts as we lament what is broken and lost, and deepen our commitment to making ourselves and each other and the world more whole. Amen, and blessed be.
Children grade K through 6 are invited to attend Head, Heart, and Hands in room 6 with Kathy. As always, you are welcome to stay here if you prefer. Okay, I'm sorry, with Wendy and Norel. The offertory, as we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with UUPMI, equipping UUs in Illinois to transform institutions and support people harmed by the prison industrial complex. If you are joining us from home or in the building, you may text to give, mail in a check, or give from our website. If you write a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. If you are in the sanctuary, we will pass the collection bowls down from the aisles. Regarding today's offertory music, Tom Hempfling, the high bidder in the 2021 auction to select the piece played by Gregory, said this: "Back when Alicia was playing our piano, when our boys were small, she played a few pieces by Ernesto Lecuona. Andalusia was one of them. Alicia said Lecuona was a favorite of her mother's. I chose Siempre because I felt its romanticism and short length. And today is Alicia's birthday. Happy birthday, Alicia.
You don't disappoint, Gregory. I hope you're pleased. Our reading is Back to the Past by Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman. At times, even blessings will bleed us. There are some who lost their lives and those who were lost from ours, who we might now re-enter, all our someone summoned softly. The closest we get to time travel is our fears softening, our hurts unclenching, as we become more akin to kin, as we return to who we were before we actually were anything or anyone. That is, when we were born unhating and unhindered, howling wetly with everything we could yet become. To travel back in time is to remember when all we knew of ourselves was love. Thank you, choir. Sometime before the pandemic, my daughter Mabel wanted to visit with my mom to hear the story of our family tradition of the Feast of Seven Fishes and to get the cioppino recipe that she made each year for Christmas Eve. And not just to get the recipe, but to really hear where it came from. And cioppino's a fish stew that we have on Christmas Eve. It's a lot better than it sounds. Mabel had just been to Italy for an anthropology class, and she was feeling her roots. She wanted to know more about where she came from, to hear the stories of our people. She also wanted to make sure that those recipes were not lost. So she and I sat and talked with my mom for several hours. The stories started with food, but soon came around to generational family dysfunction and mental illness, as they do. It's not that these stories were secrets, they just hadn't come up before, and sharing them made us all feel a little closer and more determined to not be confined by the past. I've learned some family history too, things that have helped me understand where I come from and to feel more determined about where I want to go. After hearing me preach about the case for reparations, the 2014 Atlantic article by Ta-Nehisi Coates, my mom told me a story that I hadn't heard before, which deepened my commitment to reparations and racial healing. The article, for those of you who haven't read it, begins with the story of white families leaving the South Lawndale neighborhood here in Chicago in droves, making way for predatory contract lenders to exploit and extract wealth from the Black community. My mother's family was one that fled from that very same neighborhood to the intentionally segregated neighborhood of Norridge during that time. My mom remembered the real estate agent coming to their home and saying, "You better sell now because they're coming." Meaning African Americans were crossing Roosevelt Road, one of the boundaries of segregation on Chicago's west side, to move into the white neighborhood. My Italian family was, by 1958, perceived as white, though that wasn't true half a century before when they arrived from Italy. According to my mother, within a week of that real estate agent's visit, all the white families had sold their homes and left. Knowing this about my family is painful. Acknowledging this truth commits me to exposing the ways in which systemic racism works. It compels me to use the privilege that has been handed to me at the cost of Black lives and Black wealth to work to repair harm. Knowing this about my family informs the values I want to carry forward and pass along to my children. Last Sunday at our annual meeting, we approved the value statements we spent the better part of this year creating together. For those of you who weren't able to be there, and those of you who were there but have been a little sleepy by the end of the long meeting, I want to share the final approved statements again. We practice beloved community by welcoming, affirming, and promoting the worth and dignity of all people, of all ages, abilities, backgrounds, cultures, and identities within, among, and beyond our physical and virtual spaces. Feel free to read along, right? We support the spiritual growth and well-being of our congregational community, cultivate gratitude, joy, curiosity, wonder, and an openness to personal and relational transformation as we strive to build a better world. We commit to anti-racism and anti-oppression with honesty, humility, and accountability. We bravely and lovingly engage in the challenging conversations that explore our personal, congregational, and community histories and inform our actions to dismantle racism. We engage in our interconnected world by forming diverse and lasting connections in the community and acting for peace, social, environmental, and economic justice. These statements came together through the sharing of our stories from reflecting on moments in our lives when we experienced awe and inspiration, challenge and transformation. Looking back on these stories and thinking about how they have shaped us, we were better able to understand the things that matter most to us and the values we hope to carry forward. As we crafted these statements together, it was suggested that we need to make them real. We need to reflect upon them and practice them regularly and mindfully. I plan to do a series of sermons on our value statements in the fall, and we can explore them in covenant groups and small groups, among our leadership during Faith Formation Hour, and as we engage in social justice work. These values should inform everything we do and how we do it as a congregation over the next several years. For today, I want to focus on the third value statement and how we commit to anti-racism and anti-oppression with honesty, humility, and accountability. How do we bravely and lovingly engage in challenging conversations that explore our personal, congregational, and community histories? And how does that exploration inform our actions? There's a proverb from the Akan tribe of Ghana based on the word Sankofa, which means to go back and get it. The proverb says that you must go back to your future, your past, your culture, your past, your history, to understand and direct where you are going. I learned about this concept through my time at Meadville Lombard Theological School, where I attended seminary, and where there is housed a Sankofa special collection telling the stories of Unitarian Universalists of color. If you're interested, the collection is digitized and you can explore it yourself on Meadville's website. The symbol of Sankofa is a bird with its head facing backward and its body moving forward, holding an egg, a treasure of the next generation, in its mouth. This concept of looking back to move forward is echoed by historians who often express some version of this statement: those who do not remember the past are doomed to repeat it. But Sankofa is about more than avoiding repeating history. It is about understanding who we are so that we can more mindfully and intentionally determine who we want to be, what aspects of the past are treasures to carry forward, and what should be set aside but not forgotten. In addition to approving our value statements last week, we also approved a resolution to support racial reparations and healing in 3 ways. First, we agreed to sign on to H.R. 40, the National Reparations Bill. Second, we agreed to support local reparations efforts here in Evanston. And third, we voted to give ministers and the board the power to make public statements in support of racial healing and anti-oppression without the need to have a full congregational vote. Thanks to those who put that information together so that we could make that vote well-informed. Joe and I have already signed the letters expressing our congregation's support for H.R. 40 this week, and I sent those to House of Representatives leaders. Regarding the second component of the resolution, UCE is one of 15 interfaith communities in Evanston coming together to support the groundbreaking reparations work happening in our city. I hope that some of you are able to join us and Evanston's interfaith clergy and leaders on July 13th at noon at Fountain Square to launch this collaborative interfaith effort. Our commitment is to work together to repair the historic and ongoing harm of institutional racism. Each faith community will determine how they will raise funds to contribute to reparations in Evanston, and our community hasn't determined that yet, but I hope and expect that some of you may already be contributing to the fund, as I am. If you make contributions, you can indicate that you're part of the Unitarian Church of Evanston. What we'll do at Martin Luther King Day of 2023 is we'll celebrate what has been raised together collectively as an interfaith community. But in addition to the financial commitment to support Evanston reparations, faith communities will commit to ongoing education about the need for repair and to tell the truth of harm done. Where have we in predominantly and historically white congregations been complicit and silent in the face of terrible injustice. Digging down deep to explore our history takes courage and intention. Our lives are composed of a compilation of stories with narratives highlighting the positive and downplaying the negative, but these stories are mostly incomplete. There are parts more painful to think about and share. Through honest storytelling, we will work toward healing and building accountable and lasting relationships. Our church archives, found in Reverend Susan's office, right up there, are filled with more documentation than I would ever have time to wade through, so I'm working to form a team to think about how we can make our archives more accessible and inviting. This exploration needs to be a shared endeavor. I'd like us to learn more about this exact land and who lived on it, who owned it, and who tended it before we were here. I'd like to learn more about our predecessors' responses to the segregation that was prevalent here. We know a fair amount about the ways UCE has been vocal in the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, but what about before that? Dino Robinson of Shorefront Legacy Center, who will be joining us in a few weeks, has created a traveling exhibit that will be housed here in Evanston for several months, and he's also created an extensive historical document of the impacts of racism here in Evanston called Evanston Policies and Practices Directly Affecting the African American Community. It's found on the city's website. One page of that 84-page document describes the fact that the hospitals in Evanston would not treat black patients for the first half of the 20th century. The report states, quote, "For years, Evanston's two hospitals, the Evanston Hospital and St. Francis Hospital, restricted access to black residents and employed no black doctors on their staff. As a result, in 1914, two black doctors, Arthur Butler and Isabella Garnett, opened a hospital for black patients known as the Evanston Sanitarium." I was curious about what our archives might say about this and whether there was any outrage or any response at all about this injustice. After spending hours reading through the original secretary's book from the first Unitarian church in South Evanston, as we were known at that time, I found this. At the proposed annual meeting, postponed annual meeting, October 28, 1918, postponed due to quarantine, Mr. John McCarthy, treasurer, presented his annual report showing recorded subscriptions to the Evanston Hospital Association, 1918, accredited to the Church of All Souls, $118.21. So again, that's the segregated hospital that we were contributing to. Then 2.5 years later, February 15th, 1921, the only other mention that I was able to find in the original secretary log about either hospital was this. Quote, Mr. Orr, Hugh Robert Orr was the minister serving as an interim at that time. Mr. Orr called attention informally to the desirability of having a part of the hospital Sunday collection given to the Evanston Sanitarium, in parentheses, colored. I haven't visited the financial books from 1921 yet, but it's hard for me to imagine that anything came of that passive and informal suggestion of Reverend Orr's to maybe give some of the money to the black hospital. I don't share this about our ancestors of this faith community to disparage them or to have us feel shame on their behalf, but to encourage us to examine critically and speak plainly about our past so that we may be more intentional about our future, to know where we come from so that we can stretch further toward who we want to be. It is impossible to know history in its entirety. We can only piece together fragments of what is recorded and shared. So often it is the most powerful voice in the room that gets carried forward, or the most flattering account of what took place. Countless voices and experiences of those impacted by action or inaction are lost to the diminishing forces of time. I wonder As we dig deeper into our past, what evidence we will find of courage or complicity, of outspoken resistance or silent acquiescence. And I wonder, what will the future say about us and the values that we have just decided to set in the record? Without a doubt, there will be parts of the true story we will never know, and our descendants will never learn about us. We can't capture the dynamics of the relationships we form as we strive to live our values. We won't find in our archives evidence of mutuality and affection that may have grown between Reverend Charles Edis and Reverend Jacob Blake, for example, as they partnered for fair housing here in Evanston in the 1960s. There will be no documentation of the ways our spirits will grow, the way love will expand, or the ways our commitments to justice might become the taproot of our faith that digs down deep into the soil of this collective and collaborative community. The evidence of our values will be revealed in the way that we are shaped. The story will be told by the way this community and our world are transformed over time. There will be no credit given or taken for this transformation, but it will be etched into our souls and carved into the earth that at this time, these people have dedicated themselves to build a world more free, equitable, loving, and beautiful, brick by brick, friendship by friendship, action by action, and truth by living truth. May we continue the unfolding history of this congregation, telling the story of our values through our actions and as evidenced by a more liberated and loving world. Amen.
Sandra and Lynn and Margaret, if you would please come up or down, as the case may be. As we extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment, until we are together again. Please rise in body and or spirit and join in singing in number 1074, Turn the World Around.
Turn
ourselves and our future into the world that we want to create. Let us go making peace and turning the world around. You can